It is 6:05 and we have most of our participants here, so I'm going to go ahead and start meeting. Sorry, I was just checking the list. So we have our first item is introduction and welcome with Supervisor Gustafson and Supervisor Holmes.
Oh, welcome.
Welcome, everybody. Nice to see you all virtually.
We really appreciate, I can see the list of attendees. I don't see your faces, and we have missed seeing you all, but we're so glad you could join us tonight. So thanks. So, lots going on in the, Kelly, I was just going to say there's lots going on, lots of updates to give. So we'll just move right into that. Awesome.
So we have, I'm going to read the little blurb on the top of the agenda. Pursuant to the State of California Executive Order N33-20, due to the threat of COVID-19, this North Auburn virtual town hall meeting will be conducted by webinar and teleconference. There will be no physical location open to the public and or accessible. County representatives will participate in this meeting by webinar or teleconference. So just to get a couple things out of the way, for commenting or asking a question, there's I don't know how many are familiar with Zoom, but there's a couple ways you can do it. So if you're on a computer, at the bottom middle portion of your screen, there's a raise my hand button. Feel free to click that, and then we will queue up all of the questions. After each presenter, you'll have an opportunity to ask any question or make a comment that you'd like. You can also click the Q&A button and type in your question, and then we will read it to the presenter. And then if you're on a phone, you press *9 in order to raise your hand. So those are the ways to ask a question. So the next item on the agenda is COVID updates. I don't see Dr. Sisson on here yet. So we're gonna go ahead and move on to the safety reports. And as soon as she hops on, we'll go ahead and get our COVID updates from Dr. Sisson. So the first report we have, we reached out to all of the safety organizations, fire and law enforcement. I imagine that they are all very busy at this time. So we do have Deputy Justin Williams here from the Placer County Sheriff's Office. Deputy Williams, if you want, you can unmute and your camera and your microphone, and you can go ahead and give your report.
He may not have heard you. Looks like he's out somewhere.
Deputy Williams, we're all ready for you if you want to go ahead and give your report. Just unmute your, looks like you're muted, so.
I'm sorry, was that for me?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I'm on a call right now, and I apologize.
Oh, no problem.
But I'm Justin Williams. I work in the HLD unit for the Sheriff's Office. As you guys know, dealing with homeless and problem-oriented policing type issues.
Great.
And I think that you can go ahead and do your update if you don't mind.
Sure. This could be lengthy. What kind of update would you guys like? So, a little update. Mr. Holmes has been to a few of our meetings. The update is that we're still struggling to find some resolutions on dealing with this case law that came out of Ohio a couple years ago, meaning the legalities on camping on public property. And it's been extremely challenging, not only for us, but as well as the community, in trying to explain, what certain transients and homeless can and cannot do. So we're currently in the process. The no alcohol clause has been approved, and it goes live on the 27th in the DeWitt Center. So we'll be enforcing that. as well as dipping into the Placer County Code book and enforcing the law where we can, as well as, providing services and resource information to the homeless. We still actively work with HHS, and we are constantly trying to find different housing and programs and all sorts of stuff to help with better their situation. So right now we're seeing an increase from other counties, and we're handling it as effectively as we can, getting them reconnected with their social worker in the county that they came from. If they choose to stay, they choose to stay. We will explain all the information that we can, and that's about where we're at right now. We are still seeing great numbers with housing. It's very difficult at times just because we can't physically make somebody, get into housing or go through the process to get housing. So we are constantly working with HHS to try and get people off of the streets and into some sort of housing.
Yeah, that's our goal.
It's a goal, and unfortunately at times the enforcement route sometimes gets them into housing or gets them to a place where they want to be. It's just sometimes a different route we have to take in order to get them there. And sometimes it's unfortunate, but I've been doing this for almost 15 years, and not this position, but dealing with, homelessness and transients and whatnot. And sometimes the enforcement route works better than the voluntary route. So as odd as it sounds, sometimes people get sick of us in green and they say, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm going to do what I need to do to get off the street.
Deputy Williams, I did a ride along with Deputy James Spencer.
Yes, sir.
And one of the probation officers. And I was really impressed about how well you folks know who these people are, what they should be doing if they're on probation, if they're getting the help that they need or even trying. But I was also concerned about the amount of alcohol that was being consumed. There was a group in one of the alcoves that were sitting around enjoying themselves. And I guess they understand that there's no alcohol ban coming in on the 25th of this month. So we'll see where that leads.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that aspect of it wouldn't have been leaked. I like to operate on element of surprise. So I follow a guideline that's worked really well for me in my career, and it's usually the kill 'em with kindness aspect.
Yeah, right.
And, in every report that I write, I usually verbally notify, then it goes on paper for a citation. And then after that, it goes to an arrest. So it's worked well. I think the biggest part is the continuous building a rapport with the community.
Right.
The rapport that we've built in this unit and with the community, not only the transient community, but the community in Placer County, has helped out in our benefit. We get 99% respect rate with the transients. If we ask them to do something, They usually do it. And you hopefully got to see that with Deputy Spencer. We know most of these transients by name. If you give me a description, I could probably tell you the first and last name of the person. It's just how close we work with the transients and how often we contact them and check their progress and their status. So
yeah, he had asked several of them to help clean up, and before we left the East Street alcoves, they were already starting to clean up and pick up the trash. But it grows. All that trash just keeps accumulating.
And unfortunately, we run into an issue where sometimes it's not the particular people that are around the trash piles that cause it. However, at the end of the day, I just let them know, if you are able to camp out here, you treat this like you would your other house or apartment or wherever you would live. If someone's coming over trashing it or leaving trash lying around, then I would expect that you would let them know that it's not appreciated. And if they don't want to clean it up, then they don't need to come back. And unfortunately, it falls on you to throw in the dumpster. That we provided them 2 dumpsters at the end of E Avenue, and there's really no reason why trash and garbage should be piling up.
Right, absolutely.
So that also comes back to my justification for citations, or there's other ways of dealing with it. Instead of citing or arresting, there's times where I will work a deal out with them where I'll be back in an hour and a half. If this is completed, then you will not get a citation.
Yeah. Okay.
It's almost like raising kids.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's what kind
You
of
know?
like raising teenagers.
I've got a 9-year-old and a 4-year-old, and that's sometimes how we get things done.
Right. Good.
Thank you for your report. I really appreciate it. Does anyone have any questions for Deputy Williams? You can raise your hand by clicking the hand button at the bottom, or *9 if you're on your phone. I don't see any hands raised, Deputy Williams. Thank you so much for joining us. I know you are very busy right now.
No problem, and I appreciate everyone's support, and look forward to hanging out with all of you again.
Great. Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Deputy Williams.
All right. Have a good night, everybody.
You too.
So we are joined by Dr. Sisson. I know she is very busy with all that's going on here at the county and with COVID, so we really appreciate her coming by. You can go ahead and unmute your microphone and begin your report. Oh.
Let's try that.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, I was double muted. I hate it when that
Oh.
happens. Thanks for having me, and I apologize for showing up late. I'll give you an update in case you missed my board presentation yesterday. The big news is that Placer County came off of the state's monitoring list today, and so I'm very pleased to report that. And the thing that was holding us on the monitoring list was that we had a case rate per 100,000 that was over 100 residents. And today, that case rate is down to 87. This will be reported tomorrow by CDPH. As I've kind of explained to the board, the calculations that Placer County Public Health does are slightly different than the state's calculations, because we run the cases by different dates, specimen collection date versus episode date. And I don't want to get into the weeds, but what the state uses for its monitoring list is its data. So that's what I'm reporting. So we are well below 100, and we continue to decline every day. So that is great news. That means the risk of COVID-19 has decreased in Placer County. But there's a big caveat there, and I want to emphasize that if we want to stay off of this list, then it's really important that we continue to do all the same things that got us off the list in the first place. So that is staying home as much as possible, washing our hands, not gathering with people outside of our households, staying 6 feet away from people that you don't live with, and continuing to wear a face covering when you are out and about, especially when you can't maintain 6 feet of distance or when you're indoors. So we need to keep doing that, or we will see our case rates going up again. So what we don't want to do is have everyone let their guard down and think, well, the virus is going away, and then we all come out and stop being careful, and then our cases start to go up again. So really encourage constant vigilance, as some would say. I did, since this is the North Auburn meeting, in case you aren't following the data on Placer County's data dashboard, and I encourage you to do that. This is the most real time, and we have data available by zip code, and we, I think, have a new and improved GIS map where you can not only get the number of cases by zip code, but you can also see the case rate per 100,000 by zip code. And so you can go there at placer.ca.gov/coronavirus and then click on cases, and it'll send you to our dashboard. But for the 95602 zip code, we've had 70 cases to date, and for 95603, we've had a total of 151 cases today, to date. So not huge numbers. The vast majority of Placer County's cases are in South Placer, but there are a substantial number of cases in Auburn and in Mid Placer, and again, constant vigilance. I don't think there's too much else I want to report on. I think hospitalizations have declined and then gone back up and are relatively stable. However, because of the decrease that we had, that means we then see an increase, and so the state is keeping a close eye, as are we, on our hospitalizations. But for now, we are off the monitoring list. But if we were to see an increase in hospitalizations or in some of the other metrics, we could land back on the monitoring list. I did want to say the implications of coming off the monitoring list, forgive me for forgetting that important detail. And I think there's been a large amount of confusion in the community here. So I want to be clear that because Placer County is now off the monitoring list, if we remain off the monitoring list for 14 days, then our schools, K through 12 schools, can reopen for in-person instruction without a waiver. Because we came off the monitoring list today, post-secondary education, so institutes of higher learning, so that would be William Jessup, Sierra College, they actually could open in-person lectures beginning today. So they don't have to wait 14 days like K through 12 schools do. The area that I think is disappointing for everybody is coming off of the monitoring list does not mean that our businesses can reopen. And that is because of how the state's order on July 13th, this is the state public health officer order, was written such that the restrictions for counties on the monitoring list continue to apply until further notice, even when the county comes off of the list. And so I have advocated to the California Department of Public Health that they reconsider that order and consider either rescinding or revising the order to say, to make it like schools, so that when a county comes off the monitoring list 14 days later, its businesses could resume operations. CDPH is considering that request, but they have not made any modifications at this time. So until there's a modified order from the state public health officer, unfortunately, it means that our businesses that were required to shift to outdoor or to close entirely based on that July 13th order still have to remain closed until we're able to get the state to change that order. So the good news, it's great news for schools, and hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll see some movement at the state level so that our businesses can resume operations as well. I think I'm gonna stop talking there and open it up to any questions.
So if anyone has any questions, feel free to click the raise my hand button at the bottom.
I see Supervisor Holmes is doing the old-fashioned way.
Yeah. Dr. Sisson, thank you for sending that letter to the California Department of Public Health. This morning, Supervisor Gore sent an additional letter reaffirming what you said. So hopefully the governor and the acting department,
the acting state public health officer.
yeah, hopefully they react to that and get back to it as soon as possible. I want to thank you for your presentation yesterday as Supervisor Gustafson and I went through COVID-19 / epidemiology 101 for 4 hours. It was very informative. I took a lot of notes, and I think it reaffirmed some of the thoughts that the Board of Supervisors was having. And so appreciate what you've been doing. I think you're doing a great job. And sometimes I know you take a lot of hits, and I just want to let you know how I feel, that I really appreciate the work that you've been doing to try to keep the wheels on the bus. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Holmes.
So we have 2 written in questions. So the first one is, there are 3 hospitals reporting for Placer County. Does that include Kaiser and Roseville? Is the Tahoe Truckee Hospital also included?
Yeah, great question. The 3 hospitals that we report data on are the ones that physically reside in Placer County. So that's Kaiser Roseville, Sutter Roseville, and Sutter Auburn Faith. So Tahoe Forest Hospital is not included in the Placer County hospitalization numbers because it physically is in Nevada County, although it serves many Placer County residents.
Great. And then the other question is, we have a large number of skilled nursing facilities and assisted living in 95602. So I'm wondering if this is where those numbers are attributed, or is it the general population?
That is a great question, and I cannot answer that off the top of my head. I'll have to have our epidemiology team pull the data specific for 95602 and look. I do know that we have, I believe we have 2 skilled nursing facilities, Auburn Ravine Terrace and Auburn Oaks in Auburn, and they have both had cases in both residents and staff, but I don't know what percentage those cases represent. So I'll have to get back to Kelly with that data afterwards, and so she could follow up. Although it looks like this came from an anonymous attendee.
So if you want the answer, feel free to email me, and then when I get the information, I will pass it along. I'll put my email. If people don't know it, I'll stick it in the chat. All right, so does anybody else have a question for Dr. Sisson? I don't see.
Kelly, I just wanted to thank Dr. Sisson. As Supervisor Holmes said, we echoed her letter with the Board of Supervisors with the same question. And Dr. Sisson, my question is, and I think I know this answer, but of any of the counties that have been taken off the monitoring list, at this point, none of those businesses have been allowed to reopen. Is that correct?
That is correct, because the order from the state public health officer applies statewide.
Right.
And Santa Cruz County did come off the monitoring list yesterday. I'm not sure how many other counties, if any, have come off the monitoring list since the July 13th order. But yeah, until the state changes its state public health officer order, no businesses in any county that comes off the monitoring list can resume operations.
Great. Well, thank you. And thanks for your efforts at advocacy on that as well. And thanks for all the work of you and your team during this crisis.
Sure. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. So now up next we have Keith Diederich from the Gathering Inn. He's going to give us a report. Thank you, Keith.
Well, thank you everybody for having me today. Keith Diederich, CEO of the Gathering Inn. Before I get into some more specifics, I want to just echo the sentiments that were presented earlier by Placer County Sheriff's Office. Really appreciate the collaboration that we not only have with the Sheriff's Department, but also the Probation Department and Health and Human Services under Jeff Brown, and also under Dr. Sisson. They've just been fantastic to work with. So, I mean, not a lot to report. Our numbers are somewhat lower in both our Mid-Placer Auburn program and our South Placer program, although they've come up a little bit with the extreme heat. A number of our folks that would normally be residing with us are in Project Room Key, so they're in some hotels through the efforts of Placer County HHS. We have begun our location of a third permanent supportive home. We received a contract through Placer County. We're awarded half of that contract along with Advocates for Mentally Ill Housing. We found 3 homes. One we're already operating in Lincoln, one we're operating in Rockland, and one that we have gone into escrow in Roseville. And that's to serve referrals from Whole Person Care. Formerly homeless individuals through Whole Person Care get referred to us, come into these homes. They're 6-bedroom homes, although the one we're looking at, Roseville, is a 5-bedroom home. And they get supportive assistance through case management and other services through Home Person Care in a permanent supportive housing environment. Folks rent out a room, they pay rent, and then we help them get to the various appointments that they need to get to, grocery shopping, any mental health appointments, substance abuse appointments that they may have in the community. And that program's going extremely well. So that's probably the biggest news that we have at the Gathering Inn is getting into that permanent supportive housing contract and getting those 3 homes up and running.
Great. Thank you for the update. Does anyone have a question for Keith? I don't see any hands raised. Keith, thank you so much for coming by and updating.
Yeah. And thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, up next we have our Placer County Business Resource Center update with Sherri Conway.
Hi, good evening, everyone. The biggest news, I think, for this week, well, there's so much big news, but because we have 2 of our illustrious board members here, I want to just say this Board of Supervisors has taken an action that, to our research, we've not found anywhere else in the state, which was to, at their July 28th meeting, direct staff to set up what we are calling Placer Shares. And that is the earmark or allocation of $8 million of what we expect to get for our CARES Act funding. Set that aside to support our small business and nonprofit organization community during this time that we know all too well are in crises. The exciting news is we've spent the last couple of weeks really building out the back end of the program, working out the details with our partners who are going to actually administer this program. That is the Sierra Business Council, Chris York, if you know her, just up the hill, Veronica Blake with the Placer Community Foundation, and then Stacy Caldwell with the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation will be our partners who help us administer the nonprofit aspect of the program. The application window will go live on Tuesday, August 25th. So the one thing I want to ask all of you on the call to do is don't apply on Tuesday. The application window will be open for 2 full weeks. It is not first come, first serve, which means take your time. You can go visit the site, and I think Kelly could probably put it in the chat. The website is being built out every hour. It's pretty robust right now. It's placer.ca.gov/shares. The application is actually not up yet, but all of the FAQs, the information you'll want to understand prior to applying is up and live right now. We have a hotline that will be staffed by real people that will go live, I think, tomorrow as well. So that hotline number is also contained on the website. If you're not sure either whether or not you're eligible or how to actually complete your application or what information you might need to upload, you can actually talk to a live person. What else can I say? We want to acknowledge that the board saw a tremendous need in our business community, so much so that they allocated $7 million to go to our small businesses that are most impacted. And a question we're getting a lot of is, well, how did we decide who was eligible? And if you know me, you know I'm kind of a data geek. So we looked at national, state, regional data, as well as some anecdotal understanding from our stakeholders around the county to understand who is most impacted. And I can tell you those businesses that were forced to close first, who remained closed the longest, if you remember way back when the governor had a roadmap. So those businesses that really shut down early in March would have included things like personal care services, salons, fitness, all of the folks that were allowed to open for just a brief minute, like 2 weeks, and then they shut down again and they remain shut down. They're very high on the priority list, as are restaurants that weren't able to pivot to an out dining, takeout type of platform and or an outdoor dining experience. Many restaurants just simply aren't set up to have tables and chairs outside. So those, you can find this priority matrix on that website as well, so that you can begin to understand, wow, do I qualify for this? And then get your financial information teed up and ready to go, so you're not scrambling at the last minute. And the information about what you need to upload is also on the site. One last thing I'd like to say about that is, because we've contracted with a third-party administrator, the Sierra Business Council, who we work with a lot, this will ensure that any financial information is kept completely confidential. The county will actually never see that information. That will be all with Sierra Business Council, and it will remain there. So I want you all to know that you can feel confident sharing that information. On that nonprofit side, the board saw fit to allocate 1 million of the 8 to prop up our nonprofit organizations, which we know whenever the economy is doing what it's doing right now, the demand on our safety net service organizations skyrockets. So think about food and shelter and daycare and all of those important services that our nonprofits provide throughout our community. In addition to our business organizations who were more or less locked out of the CARES Act funding. So 501c6 organizations, which most chambers are organized as, were not able to apply for EIDL or PPP loans in many instances. So we wanted to make sure that this offering would also help our business organizations. If you think about our chambers, who were not able to have their revenue generating events this summer, which are so vital to the budgets of those organizations. They're pretty decimated, coupled with the fact that the very memberships they rely on to generate the revenues are declining, with our businesses in crises, unable to pay even basic overhead. So look for both applications to go live on our website. You'll go through a series of eligibility questions, kind of like some screening questions, and then that will take you to one of two places, either into the business portal, which will go right into the Sierra Business Council website, or into one of the two community foundations if you are in fact a nonprofit. And I think I'll stop there and I'll entertain any questions, Kelly, that there might be.
Great. Does anyone have any questions for Sherri? Again, if you just joined us, sorry, I'm a broken record. You press the raise my hand button at the bottom, or *9 if you're on a phone. Sherri, I don't see any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
All of these.
Don't apply on Tuesday, apply on Wednesday. We don't want the server to crash. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Thank
Sherri.
you. So up next, we have Josh Huntsinger,
Oh,
who is going to be
Kelly?
presenting.
Kelly,
Yes.
I think you skipped over Stephanie Holloway.
Oh, I did. I'm sorry, Stephanie.
That's right. She's
Happy
been
to
very
wait.
patient.
Josh, do you want to go first? Either way.
You can go ahead, Stephanie.
All right.
Ladies
Josh.
first.
Thank you. Well, good evening. Again, Stephanie Holloway with the Department of Public Works. I'm a senior engineer in our transportation planning division. And so we just wanted to kind of come back to this group and talk a little bit about the progress that we've made on safety on Highway 49. As some of you kind of recall, there's been a lot of concern over, just safety on the Caltrans corridor of State Route 49 from Auburn all the way to Grass Valley over the last couple of years. And so just wanted to kind of take a minute to report out on what Caltrans has been doing and kind of how we've been help supporting them over the recent months, as well as kind of give you a roadmap of some things that are going to be coming your way that you'll have a chance to review and comment on. So just to kind of back up to last spring, Caltrans really started and initiated an effort to develop a comprehensive safety plan for Highway 49. And again, this was really kind of driven by some concerns in the community, over safety on Highway 49 over the years. So we actually kind of put together a collaborative effort with Caltrans, FHWA, Federal Highways, CHP, Nevada County, Placer County planning agencies, as well as the Public Works departments from both counties in the city of Auburn. And really the safety plan that was developed in coordination with all of those agencies really focused on a number of different current safety issues, as well as some long-range concerns for the corridor. So that study was conducted and completed last spring, and due to some COVID concerns, there's been a little bit of delay in getting it out to the community. But Caltrans is prepared and ready to launch a public workshop on the comprehensive safety study. That workshop will be done virtually, due to COVID concerns. But one format that they're really embracing is informational videos. So there will be a website coming, getting ready to launch here in the next couple of weeks. Will include the study, will include some informational videos to kind of help you walk through the study as well. So just a couple of, kind of highlight on a couple of the videos that they are looking to launch. One video is really going to focus, I think, on the improvements that Caltrans has focused on and done so far. So these are improvements like installation of side rumble strips along the shoulder. They've also installed some oversized speed limit signs for just driver awareness of the posted speed. And then additionally, some flashing beacons that they've installed over the last couple of months on the corridor. The other informational video they're going to put out is really, focused on, improvements that are already approved and funded. So these are things that you'll see kind of in the near term. Things like radar feedback signs in conjunction with the oversized speed limit signs, some additional safety lighting at intersections. There's a couple of acceleration or deceleration lanes. One's at Wolf Combi. The other one is at Round Valley and Quail Creek, which is actually Nevada County. And then lastly, talking about the current project that's under construction in the Auburn area, as well as the project that will follow that. And we call that our sidewalk gap closure project. So there's a couple of different construction projects in the Auburn area that are either currently being constructed or will follow there shortly. And then lastly, they'll do a video on improvements really that they're looking to fund long term. And one of those improvements I think many of you are probably interested in is related to a project that they have currently in their planning phase. It's a center barrier rail project that they are installing along the northern section of the highway in Placer County. It will stretch from the Lawrenson intersection all the way to the Lone Star intersection. And in conjunction with that, there's a couple of large roundabouts that they're currently in the planning phase. So that is one of those longer range projects. I say it longer range, within the next couple of years, there's a lot of design and project studies that need to still be conducted for that project. So I just wanted to kind of put out a plug for this virtual workshop that they're really going to be leading. It's going to come out in the next couple of weeks. They've just finalized the videos for the workshop. The safety study has been, the draft safety study has been completed, and they're really seeking, public feedback on the study. And so, keep an eye out for that. I did reach out to Caltrans today to see if their website was up and live yet. It is not, and I was sworn to secrecy on it until it does go live. But I do want to say that, I can give you I can type in the chat here tonight, the email of the District 3, Caltrans District 3 Public Information Officer. If you want to email her and get on the distribution list, she'd be more than happy to make sure that you are aware when that website does go live. What else did I want to kind of bring up? I think that was really it, Kelly. Maybe I'll close it off here and see if there's any questions.
Okay, great. Does anyone have any questions for Stephanie? And I apologize, I skipped over you.
Oh, no problem.
Good thing Supervisor Holmes is on the job.
Got my back.
Got it. He caught that one. I don't see any hands raised.
Great.
Thank you. Yes.
I'll leave Raquel's email here. Go ahead and, if you want to get on her distribution list, she'd be more than happy to include you.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And up next, for realsies, we have Josh Huntsinger. He is doing a discussion of the proposed comprehensive beekeeping ordinance. Thank you, Josh, for coming.
Hey, good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me. I am excited to be here tonight. I know this is something that definitely we would normally be taking to all of the MACs and really seeking a lot of community input on, and I think it's important that we really hear from the public on this item, and so I'm glad for any opportunity or venue we have to do that. So it's great to be here. So just to give you a little background on what I'm up to and what I'm proposing, we currently have a county ordinance, part of our zoning ordinance in the animal raising and keeping portion does currently address beehives and beekeeping. However, all it says is beekeeping and raising standards shall be as required by the Ag Commissioner. And I'm the Placer County Agricultural Commissioner. So on the one hand, the code basically says that whatever I say goes. The problem with that is there's no solid standards for me to point to. And so anything I do is really becomes based more on my opinion. And I have, I think, a pretty solid professional opinion as it comes to what's right and what's wrong as far as beekeeping, but there's no solid standard I can point to when a problem or a complaint arises. And so overall, it would be really nice for me to have be able to point out some clear code to our beekeepers that says this is in the rules, this is outside of the rules. The reason it's important is because beekeeping complaints are my #1 source of agricultural nuisance complaints. So we get a variety of different complaints when crop dusters are flying down in the western part of the county. People get nervous when they're flying near their houses. When a farmer is disking their field and creating dust, sometimes that's a complaint. When the baby cows are weaned, they make a lot of noise and people complain about those. We get a few of those agricultural complaints, but beekeeping by far and away, we typically at any given time, it seems like we have 2 or 3 different beekeeping related complaints going on that we're addressing in my office. And so really desiring to have some better standards around what's allowed and what's not allowed for beekeeping. The second kind of interest in pursuing an updated, more comprehensive ordinance for bees is the interest we've had from some beekeepers in a number of hobby beekeepers in expanding the opportunities for people to keep a couple of hives in their backyard. And so along with a lot of other types of kind of backyard gardening, people, especially with COVID, have gotten super into gardening and plants and different things. Bees are another one. I'll point you to a number of years ago, we did our our Board of Supervisors adopted a backyard chicken ordinance, which allowed, I believe, 6 hens, so female chickens, in folks' backyards. And that got a lot of public discussion around it, a lot of concerns, but ultimately I don't believe the county's had a single real well-founded complaint as a result of that ordinance. And it's really opened up some opportunities to keep a few chickens in the backyard and have some homegrown eggs for people in more residential settings. Currently, bees are not allowed in residential type zoning and just in the ag and forestry zoning. So, you know, there's a proposal on the table to expand that opportunity for people to have a few beehives in their backyard in a more residential setting. So just to jump into it, the proposal more specifically would address a couple of things. The complaints we receive from the public are generally because people have put too many beehives too close to somebody's house. And even if they're, you know, maybe 5-acre residential agricultural properties where bees are allowed, they do, you know, the beekeepers sometimes do foolish things like put 200 hives right next to the property line, right next to somebody's house. And that creates an incredible problem for the people in the house. They can't, you know, they're afraid to go out of their house. Kids can't use the swimming pool because there's bees in the swimming pool, all those kinds of complaints. A lot of these complaints are unfounded when we go out and investigate them. The bees are like half a mile away. They're not causing a problem. The majority of them are unfounded, and people just, you know, bees make a lot of people really nervous, but there are also a significant number of complaints that are really well-founded. And so one of the proposals is really to put some language in place that creates some sort of a ratio of how many hives per acre would be allowed, just to limit the total, kind of put a hard cap at or ceiling at the top and say, you know, you can have, currently the proposal is in agriculturally zoned properties, which are typically at least 5 acres in size in Placer County, you could have 5 beehives per acre up to a maximum of 100. And that's one of the things I'd like to get feedback on. That's kind of just as a conversation starter, that's where we propose things. Right now, you know, that cap of 100 beehives is not out of line with what most of the larger responsible commercial beekeepers are keeping, you know, typically on larger parcels, you know, 20 acres or larger. And there's ways to do that where they don't become a problem. I'm pretty confident in that number. But at the same time, we're having other folks put 200, 300, 400 hives in one location and really kind of blowing out the neighborhood, so to speak, with bees. And so that would be a fairly significant reduction for what some of the current practices in the county that I would describe as less responsible beekeeping practices. Another proposal along the same lines in our draft ordinance is to limit beehive locations to where those commercial beehives, which are state law defines a commercial bee yard or a commercial apiary as 10 or more hives. And so what we would propose is any bee yard that's 10 or more hives, we propose to limit those to, they couldn't be closer than a mile apart. And so in addition to capping the total number of hives based on the size of the parcel and then putting a hard ceiling of 100 hives in place, we would also require those larger bee yards to be separated by at least a mile. And so there's not 100 hives on every single 5-acre parcel, which in some instances we found to where, you know, one complaint I went out on, one 5-acre parcel had 150 hives and the parcel right next door had another 250 hives. So there was 400 hives right in the same vicinity, and the people in that neighborhood were pretty unhappy with the situation. So really causing the beehives to spread out more and then reducing the total number of hives allowed in one spot are the two probably biggest ticket items that I would like to accomplish personally, along with allowing some backyard beekeeping of some sort. We've had to date 3 outreach meetings with our beekeeping community. We've had great participation. 30 or 40 beekeepers have showed up at each of those meetings. We've also met with the Placer County Agricultural Commission, and the beekeepers and the Agricultural Commission have expressed a lot of support for this approach. But you know, it's time that I'd really like some feedback and thoughts from the public at large as well. And so that's why I come to you tonight. So with that, I'll leave it there, and just if folks have any specific questions or concerns, I'd love to hear them. And I think Kelly can provide you with my contact information if you want to reach out to me directly with more specific stuff after the meeting as well.
Yes, does anyone have any questions for Josh? Thanks, Josh. I don't see any raised hands.
Boy, they're a quiet bunch tonight. Larry and Mike, and who else is on there? Hey, Josh, I have a question. Have we had any reports or concerns about the Africanized bees taking over the hives?
Yeah, so the state law provides some, one of the things we're trying not to do with our ordinance is duplicate state law. And the state law is actually already pretty robust on a lot of things other than some of the zoning limitations. So kind of the where and how many are what we're trying to address, because the state law does not address those. So the Africanized bees, there's specific state law that addresses it. Beyond that, there's some biology behind the reason why I'm not too concerned about Africanized bees. They're more of a tropical kind of subspecies. They're very, very closely related to the European honeybee. They can interbreed readily with the European honeybee. But because they're a tropical species, there's some biological reasons. The simplest way to put it is they don't store a lot of honey. They depend on just the way they behave, they depend on a more consistent flower source rather than the European honeybees, which are well adapted to a long winter where they store up a bunch of honey to see them through over the winter. And so we're far enough north that there's no nectar flow available to bees during the winter. And so Africanized bees are not well suited to our climate, and therefore I'm not particularly concerned about them as a threat to Placer County.
Great, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you. I don't see any questions. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Up next, we have our updates from our supervisors. First up, we have Supervisor Gustafson for District 5.
You put me up first so that Jim can follow up and correct me on all the things, right? Well, I think for the most part, you've heard from county staff on a lot of the work that's been going on. And one of the things I want to commend is the county staff for is, amidst this pandemic, county staff has kept moving projects, programs, adapting to work environments that are changing constantly, rules that are changing constantly. And it's just been amazing to watch the teamwork and the effort that has gone into kind of adapting county business to continue to serve our residents during the pandemic. And certainly any number of departments have been under a huge burden during the pandemic, especially our Health and Human Services Department. But for those of you who haven't heard, we have a new Director of Health and Human Services starting in mid-September. And the new gentleman is an old friendly face who worked for Placer County for 5 years. And that's Dr. Rob Oldham. And we're just so thrilled to have him back. Jeff Brown, our current director, has been wanting to retire and then stayed on a little longer than he planned when COVID hit. And so we're just thrilled that Rob is coming back to Placer County and will pick up where he left off and is familiar with our operation, our staff, and moving forward. So that's some exciting news for Placer County, and to continue at this time in a pandemic with as many issues as we have going on in health and human services and public health and environmental health and the regulations with businesses and things. It'll be great to have somebody who is familiar with the county and understands our culture and our community very, very well as a Placer County resident. So excited to mention that. We did have a really great meeting, even though it was very long, a special meeting yesterday to talk both with Dr. Sisson and a number of experts from around the country, and some of them were outside in Europe at the time that they zoomed in to talk to us, and really educate the board and our community on epidemiology and some of the issues that are unique to COVID. With that, a number of people were surprised and didn't get the notice that we were going to have so many Nobel laureates and PhDs from all over on that call. So we are going to record and get that posted so that the public can watch it and listen and learn as well, because we as supervisors are challenged with setting public policy, and probably the toughest time there has ever been to set public policy, and a lot of the challenges that go along with the COVID pandemic. So look forward to getting that posted, and we can get links out to you so that you can hear those experts. And they didn't all agree with each other. It was a diverse group with differing opinions about how to approach the COVID pandemic. We also, as we meant, I think we've already covered a number of the things that were on my updates, but obviously important to us all right now is fire protection. And at our last regular board meeting, we approved our agreement for fire protection with CAL FIRE for the 2021 fiscal year, and we did increase the amount in that contract to cover a new fire marshal position and additional county staff to help with our hazardous vegetation ordinance. So anticipating that we will have more calls and concerns about hazardous vegetation on people's properties, and have the tools to both educate and, if need be, go in and take action if people aren't able to take care of their own properties with that. Also, I know for this group, especially the Hidden Falls update, I wanted to provide, we did approve a additional consulting services contract because of the volume of the questions that we received and comments we received on the draft EIR. So before that is finalized, the consultants are doing more work to address specifically traffic and wildfire impacts, but very high volume of comments. Obviously, it's a major concern to many of you, and we want to make sure that we do everything right in answering those comments and questions and bringing before it comes back to the Parks Commission, the Planning Commission, and the Board of Supervisors. So there'll be 3 different public hearings on this when we have the final EIR. And that's at least another month away, maybe longer. So there's still some time there. Jim, I'm just going to turn it over to you if you have some additional updates.
Oh, sure, fine. First of all, Dr. Oldham not only is the the Director of Health and Human Services, he's also the Chief Psychiatrist. And the Chief Psychiatrist is one of the highest paid employees in Placer County. They're hard to come by, so that's kind of a benefit. He's also good friends with Dr. Sisson, so this is going to be a great collaboration with Dr. Oldham coming on board.
Well, I thought it was just psychiatry work for members of the board.
Yeah, that's why he's a chief. Because we have long sessions.
Yes, we need help.
Also with the fire issue, the chipper program is on pause because of the COVID problem. A lot of the inmates that run that program have been released, so they're not inmates, they're out and about. So that's, if anybody's been trying to get a hold of the chipper program, it is on pause, so it won't be available until further notice. What I wanted to talk about was a little bit follow up with Deputy Williams about the alcohol ban on the DeWitt campus, DeWitt Center property. I've gotten quite a few people call me with concerns about the number of homeless that are in the campus, particularly on E Avenue, where some of the buildings have been vacated, but the alcoves are still open. And so many homeless people smartly. The alcoves are out of the way, and you know, there's some shade there. So what's happening is they're building little compounds. They've got tents and attachments to the building. So this has been quite a problem. And the deputy referred to it was the Boise, Idaho ruling by the Ninth Circuit earlier last year that went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court upheld it, or they didn't opine on it. So that issue is still federal law regarding people that don't have a place to sleep. They're allowed to sleep on public property. So the catch is for us, they're not allowed to camp on public property, and that's what's been happening. Some of these folks have been attaching their tents to the buildings, and that's against code. So what we're doing, hopefully, is to get these people to move on, and some of those alcoves have been fenced off. When they're gone, we fence them off right away. One of the issues is if they leave their belongings there, we have to catalog it and keep it. So in case they come back and want to know where their equipment is, we have to have a record of that. And so then the other issue is, once they can't drink on campus, where are they going to go? So we have to still figure out what's going to happen with that. Hopefully, some of these folks who have a drug and alcohol problem, maybe they'll want to get some help. And so certainly we'll be able to give them references to where they can get help. But I'm afraid some of them are just going to move on to wherever they can go. And there's many of people in the North Auburn area know where these people camp. So anyhow, we're going to be working on that. I'm working with Becky Regan, Public Work, the Facilities Department, Health and Human Services, the Probation Department, and the Sheriff's Office, trying to find remedies to do that. On last Wednesday, we had the groundbreaking for the Mercy Housing Project. They're at Richardson and First Street. This is a 3-acre parcel that will be $37,720,000 development. That's going to have 79 units, which will consist of 162 bedrooms. There'll be three 3-story buildings and two 2-story buildings. There'll be primarily 2-bedroom apartments. There'll be several 3-bedroom apartments for families. So if you've driven by there, they're moving forward quickly. Some of the foundations are up. So what I wanted to talk to you about was, I find my notes here, the ground lease. We have a ground lease with Mercy Housing for 99 years at the tremendous cost of $1 a year for 99 years. Mercy Housing will be responsible for utilities and for all utility costs, including water, sewer, communication services, and trash services. Taxes and assessments, Mercy Housing is responsible for any and all in lieu taxes and assessments, so they'll be responsible for that. The property can only be used as affordable housing, and the construction and operation, Mercy Housing is responsible at its sole cost for development, construction, operation, and maintenance of the project. They're also going to be piping that Nevada irrigation canal that runs along First Street. The county's participation in this is kind of robust. The appraised value of the land was nearly $2 million. That is part of our contribution to the land. It was unused, so that's a good value for them. We have No Place Like Home funding, which is $2.7 million for that. We've got 20 project-based housing vouchers for people that need vouchers for housing. We have a community development block grant of $1.8 million that the county has received. As far as development impact fees and traffic mitigation and sewer connection fees, That's about $718,000. And that is taken care out of our housing trust fund. And there's also some development impact fees, parks and recreation and animal control fees that is also taken out of. That's about $520,000. That is also taken out of the housing trust funds. Placer County development processing fees offsets is $185,000. We have a lot of the land, the buildings there had paid for sewer fees and their mitigation fees, so we're contributing those in some of our buildings that we're not using. Those fees are contributed to the help for the cost of that project. So Placer County has about $8 million invested in this, but nothing, much of it was in the cost of the land. And then we had the 1.8 million for project that we got for that. So we're doing pretty good. They expect to be finished in September of 2021. And so the way they're going, I have no doubt, unless there's a lot of rain or anything, I have no doubt that they'll have that up and running in September of 2021. And that concludes my report, unless there's any questions.
Great. Does anyone have any questions for either of the supervisors? So what we're going to do first is I am going to open it up to our MAC members. We really appreciate our MAC members for all of their volunteer work that they've done on the MAC so far. So I see that we have two. I see that we have two that I can recognize. So Mike and Larry. So pardon me, if you have a question and you're a MAC member, go ahead and raise your hand and I will call on you guys first. All right. Larry, go ahead and unmute yourself and you can ask your question.
Well, I don't know that I really have any question. I just really appreciate this meeting. It's really nice to kind of get caught up after months of having little communication. I just want to compliment Josh for what he's doing, especially. I know that I've had personal experience with beekeeping problems, not because I allowed a beekeeper on my property and I had neighbors who were upset, and Josh handled it very well. But it will be nice to have something that in writing that he can adhere to and say, here are our rules. I know it's been tough on him trying to make the call on his own. Thank you to both of our supervisors for your updates. And you know, it's interesting. As much as I think I know what's going on, I didn't realize that we had broken ground on the affordable housing project. I just knew something was going on. But so like I said, I appreciate the meeting, and I'm thankful that you guys put this on, and I hope if we can't meet, we can do this again on a little more regular basis so we can keep up to date. So keep up the good work.
Thank you, Larry. Does anyone else have any more questions? I'm opening it up to the group. I don't see any other hands from our MAC members. You can also type a question in the Q&A, or I don't believe we have anyone on the phone, so just click the raise hand button. Mike, I've unmuted you. Mike, go ahead and unmute yourself and you can speak.
Hi, Kelly. It's not Mike. It's Judy Eisman, his wife.
Oh, hi, Judy.
Hi. I was hoping, is it okay to speak for public
definitely.
comment?
Yeah.
Great, great. So I have something to talk about that I think is on the mind of a lot of the individuals who live in North Auburn, and it's their internet connectivity or lack of. And with COVID and individuals having to work from home, and now we're doing school from home, it has really put a huge stress on an already inadequate internet that we have. And I don't know if the board was aware that this summer, Land of Lakes and Microsoft, you might think that's a strange partnership, but they have formed a multi-level, a multi-year partnership to help the farmer for sustainability in agriculture, and they have 4 different pillars, and the second of that pillar is to improve internet connectivity. And what I'd like to do is share from Mr. Weller, the Vice President of Land of Lakes, what he says about that. And he says, if the farmer has limited access to the internet or only can access it through their phone, but doesn't have access to broadband internet, it really stifles innovation or allowing a rural business to access international markets, international commerce, or even just quality of life. And so Land of Lakes is also working with Microsoft and a project called the American Connection Project, which has 80 other companies in high tech that are come together to help provide this internet capability to rural areas. However, what they said that this is a bandage and a more robust public investment in broadband access is needed. And I can tell you that a few years ago, there was a committee that had started to investigate technology and bringing a more robust internet into the rural area, but I have not heard anything since. So I think that's something that should be revised, and it really should, really when we have this new, what I call abnormal type of way that we have to work from home and have school, it's something that that Placer County should really start to look at and investing in. So thank you.
Thanks, Judith. You know, I hear this up and down throughout my district. I'm sure Supervisor Holmes hears it too, that we really need to look at our options there. Kelly spends, and I'm sure Beverly does too, lots of time responding to people with internet access issues, and we've got to get this solved. I mean, it's just so much more profound now that kids and families and people are trying to work from home. We really need to look at it. So thank you for connecting us with Land O'Lakes. Who would have thought?
Yeah, who would have? So, and I just want to say that because of the technology, not everybody that lives in my neighborhood is able to participate tonight. They can phone in, but you know, they're not getting that really robust experience that we all could have if we had good internet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we've been working with Dieter Wittenberg in our IT department that knows he's the guru on that. So we'll put him in touch with Land of Lakes. It's Land of Lakes, is that what it is?
Yep.
Yeah, Jim, what I can do is I'll email the information to
good.
Kelly, and I'll email the article to you, Kelly, and then you can share it.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
You're welcome.
So does anyone else have a question? I see we have one caller. So if you're a caller, you press *9 if you would like to raise your hand. And then we'll go ahead and unmute you and you can ask your question or leave your comments. I don't see any hands raised last call. I appreciate everyone logging on tonight, and the presenters and also the attendees.
Yeah, thank you. It's a great, great opportunity.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
I really enjoyed it.
Thanks for all your work on it, Kelly and Beverly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thanks,
Bye.
you guys.
Thanks.
Good
Have a
night.
good evening.